Military strategists have long recognized the murky waters off the Florida Keys as ideal training grounds for covert underwater operations. In 2015, the area around Key Largo provided the perfect combination of challenging conditions and strategic relevance for Navy SEAL training exercises. The region's complex underwater topography, with its mix of coral reefs, sandy bottoms, and sudden depth changes, closely resembled many coastal environments where special operations forces might be deployed worldwide. The particular section of ocean chosen for this mission lay approximately 12 kilometers southeast of Key Largo, where the shallow waters of Florida Bay transitioned into the deeper channels of the Atlantic. This area was notorious among local marine biologists for its high concentration of bull sharks, apex predators known for their aggressive behavior and tolerance for shallow, murky water. Unlike other shark species that preferred deeper ocean environments, bull sharks thrived in the exact conditions that made this location valuable for military training. Petty Officer James Harper was selected for this covert reconnaissance mission based on his exceptional underwater navigation skills and ability to operate effectively in low-visibility environments. The 31-year-old SEAL had completed over 200 combat dives during his 8-year career, including missions in some of the world's most dangerous waters. His commanding officers considered him one of their most reliable operators for missions requiring precision and stealth in challenging aquatic conditions. The mission parameters called for a 4-person team to conduct nighttime reconnaissance of a simulated enemy installation, using only passive sonar and visual observation to map underwater defensive positions. The exercise was designed to test the team's ability to gather intelligence while remaining completely undetected, skills that would be crucial in real-world operations. James had been assigned the role of primary mapper, responsible for creating detailed charts of the seafloor and any obstacles that might impede future operations. On the night of August 14th, conditions were far from ideal for the mission. Recent storms had stirred up sediment from the ocean floor, reducing visibility to less than 2 meters even with specialized diving equipment. The water temperature was unusually warm, creating thermal layers that interfered with sonar readings and made precise navigation more difficult. James and his teammates had trained extensively for such conditions, but the combination of factors created an environment where even experienced operators faced significant challenges. The team entered the water shortly after midnight, using a small inflatable boat to reach their insertion point. They descended quickly to their operating depth of 15 meters, where they would have sufficient concealment while still being able to observe surface activity. James carried specialized mapping equipment and an underwater tablet designed to record precise measurements of the seafloor topography. His dive partner, stationed approximately 10 meters away, maintained overwatch, while James focused on his detailed survey work. James had been working methodically for nearly an hour when he noticed subtle changes in the water around him. The normal sounds of the ocean seemed muted, and he detected a faint electrical sensation that experienced divers sometimes associated with the presence of large marine predators. His training had taught him to trust these instincts, but the mission requirements demanded that he continue mapping work unless faced with immediate danger. The bull shark stalking the team approached from directly below, using the murky water and thermal layers to mask its presence until the final moment of attack. Bull sharks were known for their ability to remain motionless in the water column before launching devastating ambush attacks, and this particular specimen had perfected the technique during years of hunting in these conditions. The shark measured approximately 3 meters in length and possessed a distinctive broad head and powerful jaw structure, making bull sharks among the most feared predators in coastal waters. The attack came without warning as James crouched over his equipment, focused on recording measurements of a particularly complex section of reef structure. The bull shark struck from below and behind, its powerful jaws clamping down on his left calf with crushing force. The impact knocked James forward and sent his equipment spinning into the murky water, while the shark's weight and momentum threatened to drag him deeper into the ocean. James felt the shark's teeth penetrate his diving suit and flesh, but his military training immediately took control of his response. Rather than panicking or making sudden movements that might further agitate the predator, he reached for the sonic deterrent device attached to his equipment belt. These devices, designed specifically for military divers operating in shark-infested waters, emitted high-frequency sound pulses that could disorient predators and provide opportunities for escape. His dive partner, alerted by James's sudden movement and the cloud of blood spreading through the water, immediately activated his deterrent device while signaling for emergency ascent. The combined sonic pulses created a wall of sound that confused the bull shark and caused it to release its grip on James's leg. The predator circled briefly before disappearing into the murky depths, apparently deciding that the strange sounds represented a threat rather than an opportunity. The team executed their emergency ascent procedures flawlessly, despite James's injury and the compromised mission status. They reached the surface within minutes and activated their emergency beacon to summon a medical evacuation. James remained conscious throughout the ordeal, though he had lost significant blood and was experiencing severe pain from the puncture wounds and tissue damage. Military medical personnel airlifted James to a specialized trauma facility in Miami, where surgeons worked to repair the damage to his calf muscle and treat the deep puncture wounds. The attack had missed major arteries, but the bull shark's powerful bite had caused extensive soft tissue damage that would require months of rehabilitation. James eventually fully recovered and returned to active duty, though he never again volunteered for missions in bull shark territory. The incident prompted a comprehensive review of safety protocols for underwater military operations in predator-rich environments. This led to improved deterrent systems and modified training procedures that better prepared special operations personnel for encounters with marine predators. The waters off Monterey Bay, California, had always held secrets beneath their dark surface. In 2019, the United States Navy's Oceanographic Research Division established a network of underwater sensors along the continental shelf, approximately 47 miles southwest of the coastal city. The sensors were designed to monitor seismic activity and underwater currents as part of a classified deep-sea research program. The location was chosen specifically for its depth variations, ranging from 800 to 2,400 feet, making it an ideal testing ground for advanced maritime technology. Commander Thaddeus Blackwater, a 38-year-old veteran of underwater operations, led the research vessel USS Pelagic on what should have been a standard sensor maintenance run. The crew had performed similar operations dozens of times without incident. Their mission was straightforward: deploy a team of Navy divers to inspect and repair sensors transmitting irregular data for the past 3 weeks. The morning of September 15th dawned clear and calm, with minimal surface chop and excellent underwater visibility extending to nearly 60 feet. Chief Petty Officer Maximilian Cortez, the lead diver, descended with his partner, Second Class Quentin Ashworth, to examine the sensor array Delta 7 at 180 feet on a rocky outcropping. What they discovered would challenge everything marine biologists thought they knew about great white shark populations in North American waters. As Cortez approached the sensor array, he immediately noticed extensive damage to the titanium housing. Deep gouges and puncture marks scarred the metal surface, suggesting an encounter with something possessing tremendous bite force. The sensor's protective arm, designed to withstand extreme ocean conditions and constructed from military-grade materials, had been completely severed. Bite marks on the remaining metal showed tooth impressions that measured significantly larger than any previously recorded great white shark encounters. The spacing between individual tooth marks suggested a jaw span that defied conventional understanding of modern shark anatomy. As Cortez began documenting the damage with his underwater camera, movement in the peripheral darkness caught his attention. What emerged from the murky depths beyond the sensor array was a great white shark of extraordinary proportions. The creature measured what experienced divers later estimated to be over 22 feet long, with a girth that dwarfed any shark either man had encountered in their combined 30 years of diving experience. The massive predator moved with surprising grace for its size, circling the sensor array with apparent curiosity. Its dorsal fin stood nearly 4 feet above its back, while its head appeared disproportionately large even for a shark of such impressive dimensions. Most unsettling were its eyes, which seemed to display an intelligence that made both divers profoundly uncomfortable. Without warning, the giant shark attacked the remaining sensor equipment with savage intensity. Its jaws clamped down on the sensor arm with a crushing force that bent the titanium like aluminum foil. The grinding sound of metal being compressed echoed through the water as the shark thrashed its massive head from side to side, destroying the sensor housing. Under standard Navy protocols, Cortez attempted to document the encounter while maintaining a safe distance. However, the shark seemed to take notice of the diving team's presence. With movements that belied its enormous size, the predator abandoned the mangled sensor and turned its attention toward the two men. The shark's approach was both deliberate and terrifying. Rather than the quick, investigative passes typical of great white behavior, this creature moved with obvious predatory intent. Ashworth, who had been maintaining position near the rocky outcropping, found himself directly in the shark's path as it accelerated toward him. The attack was swift and devastating. The shark's massive jaws engulfed Ashworth's left leg up to the knee, its teeth penetrating through his diving suit and into the flesh beneath. The force of the bite was so powerful that it lifted the diver off the seafloor, shaking him like a dog with a toy before releasing him into the water. Blood clouded the water as Ashworth struggled to remain conscious while Cortez immediately activated emergency protocols. Satisfied with its demonstration of dominance, the massive shark retreated into the darker waters beyond the sensor array. However, it remained visible in the distance, continuing to circle the area. The rescue operation that followed showcased the Navy's emergency response training. Within minutes, both divers were aboard the USS Pelagic, with Ashworth receiving immediate medical attention for severe lacerations and puncture wounds to his left leg. Though serious, his injuries were deemed non-life-threatening, largely due to the diving suit's protective layers and the shark's apparent lack of sustained aggressive intent. Multiple underwater cameras captured the incident, providing unprecedented footage of a great white shark displaying size and behavior patterns that challenged existing marine biology assumptions. The video showed clear details of the creature's massive proportions, unusual head structure, and methodical approach to the equipment and the diving team. Marine biologists who later reviewed the footage noted several characteristics reminiscent of prehistoric shark species. The creature's head shape, tooth spacing, and proportions bore striking similarities to paleontological reconstructions of ancient sharks like the megalodon. However, the Navy maintained that the creature was a modern great white shark of exceptional size. The footage sparked immediate debate within the marine biology community about maximum size potentials for great white sharks, and whether isolated populations might grow significantly larger than previously documented specimens. Some researchers suggested that the deep, nutrient-rich waters off Monterey Bay might support larger predator populations than coastal areas typically encountered by researchers. Following the incident, the Navy implemented new safety protocols for underwater operations in the region and increased monitoring of the area through manned and unmanned surveillance systems. The damaged sensor array was eventually replaced, though subsequent missions reported continued equipment interference and unexplained damage consistent with large predator activity. Ashworth recovered fully from his injuries and returned to active duty, though he requested reassignment to surface operations. The encounter left both divers with a profound respect for the ocean's ability to harbor creatures that challenge human understanding of marine ecosystems. The incident report, initially classified, was later released through Freedom of Information Act requests, bringing public attention to the existence of extraordinarily large predator sharks in North American waters and renewing scientific interest in deepwater shark populations. The waters surrounding Maui's northwestern coast had long been recognized as one of Hawaii's most productive marine research environments, offering scientists unique opportunities to study tiger shark behavior in their natural habitat. By 2016, the area around Molokini Crater and the adjacent deeper waters had become a focal point for marine biologists studying the nocturnal hunting patterns of these apex predators. The region's complex underwater topography, with its shallow reefs and dramatic drop-offs into abyssal depths, created ideal conditions for observing how tiger sharks transitioned between different hunting strategies as day turned to night. A marine biology research station in a university in Hawaii had established a permanent research platform approximately 15 kilometers northwest of Molokini Crater, where scientists could conduct extended observation periods without the constraints of shore-based operations. This location provided access to both the shallow reef systems where tiger sharks often hunted during daylight hours and the deeper waters where they pursued different prey species under the cover of darkness. The research station's sophisticated tracking equipment had identified over 30 individual tiger sharks in the immediate area, making it one of the most concentrated populations in the Hawaiian archipelago. Daniel Wu, a 35-year-old marine biologist specializing in predator behavior, had been conducting research at the station for 18 months as part of his doctoral dissertation on tiger shark hunting strategies. His work focused on understanding how these massive predators modified their behavior based on environmental conditions, prey availability, and time of day. Daniel's previous research had established him as one of the leading experts on tiger shark behavior in the Pacific, and his current project was expected to provide crucial insights into the species' role in maintaining marine ecosystem balance. The night dive planned for September 23rd culminated months of preparation and data collection. Daniel intended to observe tiger sharks during their most active hunting period, using specialized low-light cameras and passive tracking equipment to document their behavior without interfering with natural predation patterns. His research protocol required him to maintain a safe distance from the sharks while recording detailed observations of their movements, feeding behavior, and interactions with other marine species. Daniel entered the water shortly after sunset, accompanied by his research partner and a support diver responsible for monitoring safety equipment and maintaining communication with the research platform. The ocean conditions were nearly perfect for nighttime observation work, with minimal current and unusually clear water that allowed extended visibility even in low-light conditions. The bioluminescent plankton that typically complicated night diving in these waters was notably absent, creating ideal underwater photography and behavioral observation circumstances. The team descended to their planned observation depth of 25 meters, where previous research had indicated the highest levels of tiger shark activity during nighttime hours. Daniel's equipment included a specialized rebreather system that eliminated the noise and bubble streams associated with conventional scuba gear, allowing him to observe shark behavior without the disturbance that might alter their natural hunting patterns. His underwater camera system was equipped with infrared capabilities and motion sensors that could detect and record shark movements even in complete darkness. Daniel had been conducting observations for approximately 2 hours when he noticed increased activity among the tiger sharks in the area. His tracking equipment indicated that at least 4 individual sharks circled the research site, displaying the methodical hunting behavior that characterized their nocturnal feeding patterns. The largest of these sharks, which Daniel had been tracking for several weeks and had designated as Tiger 7 in his research notes, measured approximately 4.5 meters in length and showed particular boldness in approaching the research team. The attack occurred as Daniel was adjusting his camera equipment to capture what appeared to be a coordinated hunting sequence involving multiple tiger sharks. Tiger 7 approached from behind and slightly below, using the darkness and Daniel's focus on his equipment to mask its final approach. The massive shark struck with devastating precision, its powerful jaws clamping down on Daniel's left thigh with crushing force that immediately penetrated his wetsuit and the protective padding underneath. Daniel's first sensation was not pain, but a crushing pressure that seemed to compress his entire leg. The tiger shark's teeth, designed for cutting through the shells of sea turtles and the tough hides of marine mammals, easily penetrated his diving gear and flesh. The shark immediately began the characteristic thrashing motion that tiger sharks use to incapacitate their prey, shaking Daniel's entire body as it maintained its grip on his thigh. His research partner, monitoring from approximately 10 meters away, immediately activated the emergency ascent protocol while deploying a high-intensity strobe light designed to disorient attacking sharks. The sudden burst of light confused Tiger 7, which released its grip on Daniel's leg and circled briefly before disappearing into the darkness. Daniel's partner quickly moved to his position and began the emergency ascent while maintaining constant pressure on the wound to minimize blood loss. The ascent to the surface required careful management of Daniel's injuries and decompression requirements, as the team had been working at depth for over 2 hours. Despite his severe injuries, Daniel remained conscious and was able to assist with the emergency procedures, though he was losing blood rapidly and experiencing severe pain from the tissue damage. His research partner constantly communicated with the surface support team, updating Daniel's condition and coordinating the emergency medical response. The research platform's medical team had been monitoring the dive through underwater communication systems and was prepared for the emergency when the team reached the surface. Daniel was immediately transferred to the platform's medical facility, where emergency treatment focused on controlling bleeding and stabilizing his condition for transport to shore-based medical facilities. The wound was extensive, with deep puncture marks from the tiger shark's teeth and significant tissue damage from the crushing force of its bite. Daniel was airlifted to a Memorial Medical Center in Maui, where trauma surgeons worked through the night to repair the damage to his leg. The shark's bite had missed major arteries but had caused extensive damage to muscle tissue and had fractured his femur in 2 places. The surgery required the insertion of metal plates and screws to stabilize the bone fractures, and Daniel faced months of rehabilitation to regain full mobility. The attack effectively ended Daniel's field research career. He developed a psychological aversion to deep-water diving that prevented him from returning to his previous work. He eventually transitioned to laboratory-based research and advocated for improved safety protocols in the marine biology fieldwork. His experience highlighted the inherent dangers researchers face working with apex predators, leading to the development of new safety equipment and procedures for underwater research operations. Daniel's research notes from that night provided valuable insights into tiger shark behavior, including evidence that the sharks exhibited coordinated hunting patterns that had not been previously documented in the scientific literature. The Black Sea resort city of Sochi, Russia, had always prided itself on its pristine marine attractions. In 2019, the newly renovated Riviera Dolphinarium stood as one of the crown jewels of the city's entertainment district, drawing thousands of visitors each summer to witness the spectacular performances of its resident bottlenose dolphins. The facility, which had undergone extensive renovations following the 2014 Winter Olympics, boasted state-of-the-art pools and safety equipment that management claimed were among the most advanced in Eastern Europe. Nina Park had been working at the Dolphinarium for nearly 8 years, having started as an assistant trainer fresh out of marine biology school in Moscow. Her colleagues often remarked that she possessed an almost supernatural ability to connect with the dolphins, understanding their moods and behaviors in ways that seemed to transcend typical human-animal communication. The 32-year-old trainer had developed particularly strong bonds with the facility's 4 adult dolphins, especially with Maxim, a massive male who had been rescued as a calf from the Mediterranean and had grown to become the star of the evening shows. On the morning of September 15th, Nina arrived at the facility earlier than usual, intending to conduct individual training sessions with each dolphin before the afternoon tourist crowds arrived. The weather was perfect for outdoor pool work, with calm conditions and crystal-clear water allowing optimal visibility during training exercises. She had planned to work on new behavioral sequences with Maxim, preparing for the upcoming autumn show season that would feature more complex routines designed to impress the dwindling tourist numbers. Nina began her session by entering the main performance pool, where Maxim waited in the deeper section. She carried her usual training equipment, a whistle, a bucket of fish rewards, and a waterproof clipboard for noting behavioral observations. The routine started normally, with Maxim responding enthusiastically to her commands and performing the familiar jumps and spins that had made him famous among regular visitors. Nina felt confident about introducing the new sequence she had been developing, which involved more complex underwater interactions between the trainer and the dolphin. The trouble began when Nina decided to work on a routine that required her to swim alongside Maxim in the deeper portion of the pool. She had performed similar exercises countless times before, but something seemed different about the dolphin's demeanor that morning. His usual playful clicking sounds had taken on a more aggressive tone, and his movements appeared more erratic than normal. Nina later told investigators that she had noticed these warning signs, but had dismissed them as typical pre-performance excitement. As Nina treaded water near the pool's center, preparing to guide Maxim through a synchronized swimming sequence, the dolphin suddenly changed direction. Instead of following the planned route, Maxim accelerated directly toward her with an intensity that immediately triggered her survival instincts. Before she could react or signal for him to stop, the 800-pound marine mammal collided with her, his powerful jaws clamping down on her left forearm with crushing force. The attack was unlike anything Nina had experienced while working with marine mammals. Maxim's grip was relentless, and he began to shake his head violently from side to side, a behavior typically associated with how dolphins stun their prey in the wild. Nina felt the bones in her arm grinding against each other as the dolphin's conical teeth penetrated her wetsuit and flesh. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, but her training kicked in as she attempted to remain calm and avoid sudden movements that might further agitate the animal. Maxim's decision to drag Nina toward the deeper end of the pool made the situation truly terrifying. Using his powerful tail, he pulled her underwater while maintaining his grip on her arm. Nina found herself in a desperate struggle for air as the dolphin repeatedly dove and surfaced, each time taking her further from the pool's edge, where she might have been able to call for help. She later described the experience as feeling trapped in a washing machine operated by a creature that possessed both incredible intelligence and terrifying strength. Nina's survival instincts told her to fight back, but her professional knowledge warned her that aggressive resistance might escalate the attack. She attempted to use her free hand to gently touch Maxim's rostrum, a technique that had sometimes worked to calm agitated dolphins in the past. However, the dolphin seemed beyond reasoning, continuing his assault with what Nina described as methodical determination. She began to worry that she might lose consciousness from blood loss or drowning before anyone discovered her predicament. The attack continued for what felt like an eternity, but was likely only 3 or 4 minutes. Nina's vision began to blur from pain and oxygen deprivation when she heard shouting from the pool deck. Dmitry Volkov, the facility's head of security, had arrived for his morning inspection and immediately noticed the commotion in the water. He quickly activated the emergency alarm system and radioed for additional staff while grabbing the long-handled net typically used for pool maintenance. Several trainers arrived within minutes and worked together to distract Maxim while Dmitry extended the net toward Nina. The dolphin finally released his grip when faced with multiple humans around the pool perimeter, apparently confused by the sudden change in his environment. Nina managed to grab the net and was pulled to safety, though she had lost significant amounts of blood and was barely conscious. Emergency medical teams transported Nina to a hospital in Sochi City, where surgeons worked for 6 hours to repair the extensive damage to her arm and hand. She survived the attack but required multiple reconstructive surgeries and months of rehabilitation. Nina never returned to work as a dolphin trainer, eventually accepting a position with a marine conservation organization focused on research rather than direct animal interaction. The incident prompted a complete review of safety protocols at the Riviera Dolphinarium and raised serious questions about the psychological stress experienced by dolphins in captivity. Maxim had retired from public performances, and the facility implemented new policies requiring multiple trainers to be present during all water-based training sessions. The waters surrounding Gansby, South Africa, had earned recognition as one of the world's premier great white shark research locations by 2017. Located approximately 160 kilometers southeast of Cape Town, this small fishing village sat at the heart of what marine biologists called Shark Alley, where the world's largest great white sharks congregated year-round. The area's unique combination of seal colonies, kelp forests, and deep water channels created perfect conditions for apex predator research, but also presented significant risks for human ocean users. Lucas Meyer, a 35-year-old adventure kayaker from Germany, had traveled to South Africa to experience the country's renowned marine environment. Meyer was an experienced sea kayaker with over 15 years of paddling experience in various international locations. His expertise with sea conditions and marine wildlife had made him somewhat complacent about potential dangers. The morning of July 15, 2017, offered exceptional conditions for sea kayaking, with calm winds, moderate swells, and excellent visibility. Meyer had launched his bright yellow 17-foot sea touring kayak from Kleinby Harbor before dawn, intending to paddle toward Dyer Island to observe the seal colonies and potentially encounter migrating whales. 2 miles offshore, Meyer encountered a pod of common dolphins that approached his kayak with apparent curiosity and swam alongside him for nearly 30 minutes. Marine biologists later theorized that this dolphin encounter may have inadvertently attracted the great white shark that attacked. Great whites follow dolphin pods, hoping to scavenge kills or hunt separated individuals. Great white sharks rely heavily on visual identification when selecting prey, particularly near the surface. From below, a kayak's elongated shape and the paddler's movements can closely resemble a seal or other marine mammal, especially when the kayak's approach angle obscures distinguishing features. The attack occurred with devastating power and speed. The shark, estimated at over 14 feet in length, launched itself from the depths with such force that it partially breached the surface upon impact. The collision created a tremendous crash that could be heard across the water, followed immediately by fiberglass cracking under the shark's massive jaws. Meyer was thrown from his kayak as the shark's attack split the hull nearly in half. The predator's serrated teeth had completely punctured through the fiberglass construction, creating a jagged wound extending over 4 feet along the vessel's length. The force launched Meyer several feet through the air before he crashed back into the ocean. A second assault followed the shark's initial attack as Meyer struggled among the wreckage. This time, the predator made contact with Meyer himself, its teeth grazing his left thigh and creating deep lacerations that began bleeding profusely. The injury, while serious, was relatively minor compared to what could have occurred with a full grip. Meyer's survival depended on his experience with emergencies and his ability to remain calm. Rather than thrashing, which might have triggered additional attacks, he focused on clinging to the largest remaining section of his kayak while assessing his injuries and rescue options. The shark's behavior following the attacks suggested confusion rather than continued predatory interest. After circling the wreckage twice, the massive predator disappeared into deeper waters. Marine experts explained that great whites typically investigate potential prey through biting, then retreat to assess suitability. The kayak's fiberglass composition and Meyer's human scent likely discouraged further attacks. Rescue came when the fishing vessel Cruise, operated by local fisherman Hendrik van der Merwe, spotted the debris field approximately 45 minutes after the attack. Van der Merwe had been checking crayfish traps when he noticed the bright yellow kayak wreckage and immediately altered course to investigate. The rescue operation was complicated by Meyer's injuries and the sinking wreckage. Van der Merwe carefully maneuvered his boat while his crew prepared emergency medical supplies. They successfully pulled Meyer from the water and immediately applied pressure bandages to his thigh wounds. The crew radioed for emergency medical assistance, and a rescue helicopter met them halfway back to shore. Meyer was airlifted to a hospital, where surgeons treated his lacerations with over 60 stitches. No major arteries or bones were affected despite significant tissue damage and blood loss. Meyer recovered fully within 3 months, though the experience profoundly changed his perspective on ocean kayaking. He now advocates for enhanced safety protocols in shark-populated waters and supports marine conservation efforts. The incident became a valuable case study for researchers studying human-shark interactions, contributing to improved safety guidelines for ocean recreation in South African waters. The attack reinforced Gansbai's reputation as a world-class marine research destination and a reminder of the ocean's inherent dangers. In 2017, the pristine waters off Gansbai, South Africa, had earned a reputation as the great white shark capital of the world. Located approximately 2 hours southeast of Cape Town along the Western Cape's rugged coastline, this small fishing village became a premier destination for thrill-seekers and marine enthusiasts. The area's unique geography, where the warm Indian Ocean meets the cold Atlantic, created ideal hunting conditions for the apex predators that patrolled these waters year-round. Dyer Island, situated just 8 kilometers offshore from Gansbai, was a natural seal colony attracting thousands of Cape fur seals. This abundant food source had drawn great white sharks to the region for centuries, creating what marine biologists termed Shark Alley, a narrow channel between Dyer Island and nearby Geyser Rock where shark activity peaked during the autumn months. Local tour operators had capitalized on this natural phenomenon, offering cage diving experiences that allowed visitors to observe these magnificent predators in their natural habitat. Michael Evans, a 28-year-old adventure sports enthusiast from Johannesburg, had arrived in Gansbai with a group of university friends for what they had planned as the ultimate adrenaline weekend. The marketing executive had recently purchased a high-performance jet ski and was eager to test its capabilities in the open ocean. His companions had warned him about the area's reputation for shark activity, but Michael had dismissed their concerns, arguing that jet skis move too quickly for sharks to pose any real threat. On the afternoon of March 22nd, conditions appeared perfect for water sports. The ocean was unusually calm, with minimal swells and excellent visibility beyond the usual limits. Michael had spent the morning participating in a cage diving expedition, where he had observed several great whites from the safety of a steel enclosure. The experience had left him exhilarated rather than cautious, and he convinced his friends to join him for jet skiing despite the afternoon being prime hunting time for sharks. The group launched their watercraft from Kleinbai Harbor, with Michael taking the lead on his new machine. He headed directly toward the open ocean, ignoring the designated safe zones marked by local authorities. His friends followed at a more conservative distance, content to enjoy the scenic coastline while maintaining visual contact with the shore. Michael, however, was determined to push his jet ski to its limits and ventured further into the deep water channels where the ocean floor dropped away dramatically. Michael was approximately 3 kilometers offshore when he decided to perform a series of high-speed maneuvers, sending massive sprays of water into the air as he carved tight turns across the swells. The noise and vibration from his engine, combined with the water surface disturbance, created the type of commotion that typically attracted curious great whites investigating potential prey. Unbeknownst to Michael, a massive female great white had tracked his movements for several minutes from the depths below. The attack occurred with devastating suddenness. As Michael completed a sharp turn and briefly slowed his jet ski to check his position, the great white launched itself from the depths in a spectacular breach that marine biologists later estimated required tremendous power and precision. The shark, measuring approximately 5 meters long and weighing over 2 tons, struck the jet ski with such force that Michael and his watercraft were lifted completely out of the water. The impact threw Michael clear of his jet ski, but the shark's momentum carried it forward, and its massive jaws clamped down on his left leg with crushing force. Witnesses later described seeing the shark's distinctive triangular dorsal fin as it thrashed at the surface, with Michael visible in its grasp. The attack lasted only seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. The great white's serrated teeth severed major arteries and caused massive trauma to Michael's leg and lower torso. Following approximately 200 meters behind, Michael's friends witnessed the attack and immediately radioed for emergency assistance while racing toward the scene. By the time they reached the area, the shark had disappeared into the depths, leaving an expanding pool of blood and debris from the destroyed jet ski. They found Michael floating face down, unconscious and bleeding heavily from his injuries. The rescue operation involved multiple boats from the National Sea Rescue and emergency medical personnel helicoptered to the scene. Despite their rapid response and advanced medical equipment, Michael had lost too much blood to survive the journey to shore. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at a hospital in Hermanus, making him the third shark attack fatality in South African waters that year. The incident sent shockwaves through the local tourism industry and prompted immediate discussions about safety protocols for recreational water sports in known shark habitats. Michael's death served as a stark reminder that even experienced water sports enthusiasts were vulnerable to the ocean's apex predators. His family later established a foundation promoting water safety education and supporting shark research initiatives. The attack also highlighted the complex relationship between human recreation and marine ecosystems. Local authorities implemented new regulations requiring jet ski operators to maintain minimum distances from seal colonies and to avoid certain areas during peak shark activity periods. Michael's tragic death became a catalyst for improved safety measures that would protect future visitors to these magnificent but dangerous waters. By 2012, the remote coastline near Albany, Western Australia, represented one of the continent's most pristine and dangerous marine environments. Located approximately 400 kilometers southeast of Perth, this rugged stretch of coast featured a combination of rocky headlands, secluded beaches, and deep water channels that created perfect conditions for great white shark populations. The area's isolation from major population centers meant that emergency services were limited, and beachgoers often found themselves completely self-reliant in crises. The beach where the Singh family spent their weekend was typical of the area's geography. A crescent-shaped bay protected by granite headlands, with clear blue water that masked the dramatic depth changes just offshore. The location's beauty matched its isolation, accessible only by a rough dirt track that wound through dense coastal scrubland. This remoteness appealed to families seeking privacy, but meant that help could be hours away in an emergency. On the morning of March 10, 2012, 38-year-old Michael Singh had loaded his family's four-wheel drive vehicle with camping gear, food, and beach equipment for what was intended to be a relaxing weekend escape from their busy lives in Perth. Singh worked as a civil engineer for a mining company and rarely had opportunities to spend uninterrupted time with his wife, Priya, and their 3 children, aged 6, 9, and 12. The family had discovered this particular beach during a previous camping trip and had returned several times over the years. The Singh family's camping spot was on a bluff overlooking the beach. The bluff provided panoramic views of the coastline and excellent vantage points for monitoring the children's activities. The elevated position also offered protection from coastal winds, which could make beach camping uncomfortable during the region's unpredictable weather patterns. Michael had chosen the location carefully, considering both scenic beauty and practical safety factors. Weather conditions on that particular weekend were exceptional, with calm seas, warm temperatures, and minimal wind, creating ideal conditions for swimming and beach activities. The water temperature registered at approximately 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is comfortable for extended swimming sessions. Visibility beneath the surface extended to nearly 40 feet, allowing swimmers to see the sandy bottom clearly and spot any approaching marine life. The family had spent the morning exploring tide pools and collecting shells, which kept them in shallow water close to shore. After lunch, the children had been playing with an inflatable beach ball when a gust of wind carried it into deeper water beyond their reach. The ball drifted approximately 50 meters offshore, floating in water shallow enough for an adult to wade through safely. Michael volunteered to retrieve the ball, which seemed reasonable given the calm conditions and the relatively short distance. He waded into the surf wearing only swimming shorts, expecting to grab the ball quickly and return to shore within minutes. The water depth gradually increased, reaching his waist when he approached the floating toy. Local fishermen had been cleaning their catch on the rocky headland earlier that morning, a practice that had inadvertently created a scent trail extending from the rocks into the surrounding waters. Fish blood and offal had been discarded directly into the ocean, creating an attractant for scavenging species, and ultimately, the predators that hunted them. This practice, while traditional among local anglers, had significantly elevated the risk of shark encounters in the immediate area. The great white shark that attacked Michael Singh was later estimated to be over 15 feet long, a massive predator that had likely been drawn to the area by the fish cleaning activities. Great whites can detect blood and other organic compounds in water and track scent trails across considerable distances. The shark had probably been investigating the area for several hours before the Singh family arrived. The attack occurred without warning as Michael reached for the floating ball. The shark struck from below and behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his lower torso with crushing force. The impact lifted him partially out of the water before dragging him beneath the surface in a cloud of blood and churning foam. The attack was both swift and devastating, with the shark's serrated teeth causing massive internal injuries that proved immediately fatal. Priya Singh and the 3 children witnessed the entire attack from their position on the beach. Their afternoon of family fun transformed into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The children's screams echoed across the empty beach as they watched their father disappear beneath the waves. The water around the attack site stained red with blood. The isolation that had made the location attractive for a private family retreat now became a deadly disadvantage. The nearest emergency services were in Albany, over an hour's drive away on rough roads. Priya Singh had no means of summoning immediate help, and the remote location meant that other beachgoers who might have assisted were non-existent. Local volunteer lifesavers from the Albany Sea Rescue Squadron received the emergency call nearly 2 hours after the attack. The delay was due to the time required for Priya Singh to reach a location with mobile phone coverage, as the remote beach offered no cellular service. By the time rescue personnel arrived, the shark had departed, and Michael Singh's body had been recovered from the shallows by the receding tide. The aftermath of the attack revealed the shark's massive size and power. Bite marks on Michael Singh's body showed tooth impressions consistent with a great white shark over 15 feet long, one of the largest ever documented in Western Australian waters. The attack had been so violent that the shark had bitten completely through his torso, causing injuries that would have been fatal within minutes, regardless of medical intervention. The incident prompted immediate beach closures throughout the Albany region and sparked renewed debate about shark management policies in Western Australia. Marine authorities deployed shark nets and increased patrol activities, though the effectiveness of such measures in protecting isolated beaches remained questionable. The attack highlighted the risks of swimming in remote locations where sharks were known to be present. The Singh children required extensive psychological counseling to cope with the trauma of witnessing their father's death. The family eventually relocated to a different city, unable to remain in an area where memories of the attack were constantly reinforced by proximity to the ocean. Priya Singh became an advocate for shark attack prevention, working with marine authorities to develop better warning systems for remote beaches. The local fishing community faced criticism for their fish cleaning practices, though many argued that such activities had been traditional for generations without previous incidents. Marine biologists pointed out that shark attacks remain statistically rare, but emphasized that certain behaviors and locations could significantly increase risk factors. The combination of fish cleaning activities and shallow water swimming had created conditions that made the attack more likely. The incident contributed to ongoing research into great white shark behavior and distribution patterns along the Western Australian coast. Scientists used the attack data to understand better how human activities might influence shark behavior, and to develop more effective safety protocols for beachgoers in remote areas where emergency response times were limited. By 2018, the waters surrounding Cape Cod, Massachusetts, had experienced a dramatic resurgence of great white shark activity, transforming what had once been considered relatively safe fishing grounds into one of the most dangerous shark habitats on the North American coast. The recovery of the gray seal population, protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act since 1972, had created an abundant food source, that attracted increasing numbers of these apex predators to the Cape's outer beaches and fishing areas. Chatham, located on Cape Cod's southeastern elbow, bore the brunt of this ecological transformation. The town's fishing industry, which had sustained local families for generations, found itself adapting to new realities as commercial fishermen reported increasingly frequent shark encounters. The area around Monomoy Island just south of Chatham had become particularly notorious for great white activity, with marine biologists documenting over 40 individual sharks in the immediate vicinity during the summer months. Mark Reynolds had been fishing these waters for nearly 3 decades, having inherited his lobster fishing operation from his father and grandfather before him. The 54-year-old captain of the fishing vessel, Mary Catherine, knew the local waters intimately. He had weathered countless storms, equipment failures, and market fluctuations that had driven many of his competitors out of business. His reputation among Chatham's fishing community was built on his ability to locate productive lobster grounds and his willingness to work in conditions other fishermen considered too dangerous. On the morning of October 8th, Mark departed Chatham Harbor before dawn with his 2-person crew, heading toward his most productive lobster grounds, located approximately 8 kilometers southeast of Monomoy Island. The weather forecast called for calm conditions with light winds, ideal for hauling the heavy lobster traps that formed the backbone of his operation. Mark had been working these particular grounds for over 15 years and had never experienced serious problems with marine predators, despite the recent increase in shark sightings throughout the region. The Mary Catherine reached the first string of traps shortly after sunrise, and Mark's crew began the systematic process of hauling, checking, and resetting the lobster traps. The morning's catch was promising, with several traps containing legal-sized lobsters that would bring good prices at the local fish market. Mark worked methodically through his trap lines, using the hydraulic hauler to get the heavy wooden and wire contraptions to the surface while his crew members processed the catch and prepared the traps for resetting. The problems began when Mark discovered that one of his most productive traps had become severely tangled in what appeared to be abandoned fishing line, possibly from a recreational fishing boat that had lost tackle in the area. The trap was valuable enough that Mark attempted repairs rather than simply cutting it loose and accepting the loss. He instructed his crew to position the boat carefully while he worked to untangle the mess of rope and wire that had rendered the trap inoperable. Mark had been working on the tangled trap for nearly 20 minutes when he lost his footing on the wet deck, slipping between the trap and the boat's gunwale. The cold October water of the North Atlantic immediately soaked through his work clothes, and he struggled to maintain his grip on the boat's side while his crew scrambled to throw him a life ring. The commotion and splashing had scraped his leg against the barnacle-encrusted hull, creating a small but steady flow of blood into the surrounding water. The great white shark that attacked Mark had been following the fishing boat for over an hour, attracted by the scent of bait and the vibrations created by the hydraulic equipment used to haul traps. The massive predator, estimated by marine biologists to measure over 4 meters in length, had been circling at a distance of approximately 50 meters, displaying the cautious behavior typical of great whites investigating potential prey. Mark's sudden entry into the water, combined with the blood from his scraped leg, triggered an immediate predatory response. The attack came from below as Mark struggled to pull himself back aboard his boat. The great white struck with tremendous force, its powerful jaws clamping down on his right calf with crushing pressure. Mark felt the shark's serrated teeth penetrate his heavy work boot and the thick wool socks underneath, grinding against his lower leg bone. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, but his survival instincts and decades of experience working in dangerous conditions allowed him to maintain some degree of focus. Mark's crew members, who had witnessed the entire attack from the deck above, immediately began shouting instructions while throwing anything they could find to distract the shark. The great white maintained its grip for several seconds, shaking its head from side to side in the characteristic motion sharks use to tear flesh from their prey. Mark later described feeling as though his leg was caught in a massive vice that was simultaneously crushing and twisting his bones. Using every ounce of strength, Mark managed to grab the shark's snout with both hands and push against its cartilaginous surface while kicking with his free leg. Combined with his crew's continued shouting and splashing, this desperate action convinced the great white that its intended prey was more trouble than it was worth. The shark released its grip and disappeared back into the depths, leaving Mark floating in blood-tinged water while his crew worked frantically to pull him aboard. The rescue operation required all 3 men working together to haul Mark's injured body over the boat's gunwale and onto the deck. His right leg had sustained massive trauma, with deep puncture wounds from the shark's teeth and significant tissue damage from the crushing force of its bite. Mark remained conscious throughout the ordeal, directing his crew to apply pressure to the worst wounds, while they radioed for Coast Guard assistance. The Coast Guard helicopter reached the scene within 30 minutes, but rough seas made a direct airlift from the fishing boat's deck impossible. Instead, Mark had to be transferred to a Coast Guard cutter that had responded to the emergency call, adding precious time to his journey to medical care. He was eventually airlifted to a general hospital in Boston, where trauma surgeons worked for 8 hours to repair the extensive damage to his leg. Mark's survival required multiple surgeries and nearly a year of rehabilitation, but he eventually returned to fishing. He implemented new safety protocols, including shark deterrent devices, and modified procedures for working near the water's edge. His experience became a cautionary tale that spread throughout Cape Cod's fishing community, highlighting the new realities of working in waters where great white sharks had re-established their presence. By 2015, the tropical waters surrounding Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean had earned a sinister reputation among surfers worldwide. Located 450 miles east of Madagascar, this French overseas territory boasted some of the region's most pristine coral reefs and consistent surf breaks. However, beneath the crystalline waters lurked a predator population that had transformed paradise into a hunting ground. The island's unique geography, featuring volcanic drop-offs that plunged thousands of feet into the ocean depths, created perfect conditions for large pelagic species, particularly tiger sharks. On the morning of August 12, 2015, 24-year-old Camille Moreau prepared for what she anticipated would be a peaceful surf session before the typical crowds arrived. Moreau, visiting from mainland France to spend the summer with relatives, had been surfing the break regularly for 3 weeks without incident. She had grown comfortable with the reef's layout and understood the local conditions well enough to recognize optimal surfing times. The dawn session appealed to Moreau because of the solitude it offered. Tourist surfers typically arrived later in the morning, leaving the early hours to experienced locals and visitors who appreciated the tranquil atmosphere. Weather conditions on that particular morning were ideal, with light offshore winds creating clean wave faces and excellent visibility extending beyond the reef break. Local fisherman Auguste Delacroix had positioned himself on the rocky shoreline before sunrise, preparing his nets for the day's work. From his vantage point, he maintained clear sightlines across the entire reef area where Moreau had paddled out. Delacroix later reported that she had positioned herself near the channel where sea turtles frequently passed through during their morning feeding routines. The turtle population around St. Louis had increased significantly in recent years due to conservation efforts, creating an unintended consequence that marine biologists were only beginning to understand. Tiger sharks, apex predators known for their opportunistic feeding behavior, had adapted their hunting patterns to take advantage of the reliable turtle activity in the area. At approximately 7:30 in the morning, Moreau was sitting on her surfboard waiting for the next set when Delacroix observed what he initially thought was a large wave approaching from deeper water. The disturbance in the water proved far more sinister as a massive tiger shark, estimated at over 12 feet in length, launched its attack with devastating precision. The assault occurred with such violence that Delacroix could hear Moreau's scream across the water. The shark had approached from below and behind, using the reef's topography to mask its advance until the final moment. Unlike great whites, tiger sharks are known for their persistence once they commit to an attack, and this individual demonstrated that characteristic with terrifying effectiveness. Delacroix immediately activated his marine radio, broadcasting distress calls to the harbor authority and local emergency services. However, the distance from shore and the nature of Moreau's injuries made rescue efforts largely symbolic rather than practical. The shark had inflicted massive trauma to both her leg and torso, wounds that proved unsurvivable given the remote location and response time requirements. The attack continued for several minutes as the tiger shark maintained its grip on Moreau, pulling her underwater repeatedly. Delacroix later described the water around the attack site as turning completely red, with debris from both the surfboard and the victim creating a disturbing scene that haunted him for months afterward. Emergency responders arrived within 20 minutes of Delacroix's initial radio call, but by that time, Moreau had already succumbed to her injuries. The rescue team recovered her body approximately 100 meters from the initial attack site, suggesting the shark had moved her a significant distance during the assault. The surfboard, discovered several hours later, washed against the reef and showed clean bite marks that marine experts confirmed belonged to a large tiger shark. The incident reignited long-standing debates about shark management around Réunion Island. Local authorities had implemented various protective measures over the years, including shark nets and increased patrols, but the island's unique marine ecosystem made complete protection virtually impossible. The volcanic topography that created excellent surfing conditions also provided a perfect habitat for large predator species. Moreau's death particularly affected the local surfing community because she had been well-liked and respected during her stay. Her relatives organized a memorial service at the beach where she had learned to surf as a child during previous family visits. The ceremony drew surfers from across the Indian Ocean region, highlighting the tight-knit nature of the international surfing community. Marine biologists extensively studied tiger shark behavior in the St. Louis area following the attack. Their research confirmed that the combination of turtle activity, reef structure, and deep water access created optimal hunting conditions for large tiger sharks. The findings led to modified safety recommendations for surfers, particularly regarding dawn and dusk sessions when turtle activity peaked. The incident also prompted renewed discussion about balancing marine conservation and human safety. Reunion's shark population had recovered significantly following fishing regulations implemented in the 1990s, but the recovery had created new challenges for ocean users. Marine experts emphasized that shark attacks remain statistically rare, but acknowledged that certain locations and conditions elevated risk factors considerably. Delacroix continued fishing in the area, but never forgot the morning when Paradise revealed its deadly nature. His eyewitness account provided crucial details that helped marine biologists understand the attack sequence and contributed to ongoing research into tiger shark behavior patterns around Réunion Island. The waters surrounding Guadalupe Island, located approximately 240 kilometers off the coast of Baja California, Mexico, had gained international recognition by 2013 as one of the world's premier destinations for great white shark encounters. This remote volcanic island, rising dramatically from the Pacific Ocean's depths, served as a seasonal aggregation site for some of the largest great white sharks in the world. The island's unique position at the convergence of several major ocean currents created an ecosystem that supported massive populations of marine mammals, attracting the apex predators that made Guadalupe Island famous among diving enthusiasts and marine researchers. The Mexican government had designated the waters around Guadalupe Island as a biosphere reserve in 2005, implementing strict regulations governing human activities in the area while promoting sustainable ecotourism that showcased the region's remarkable marine biodiversity. Licensed tour operators were required to follow specific protocols when conducting cage diving expeditions, including mandatory safety briefings, specialized equipment requirements, and restrictions on the number of divers allowed in the water simultaneously. John Miller, a 42-year-old civil engineer from San Diego, had planned his trip to Guadalupe Island as a once-in-a-lifetime adventure that would fulfill his long-time fascination with marine predators. The father of three had been an experienced recreational diver for over 15 years, having logged hundreds of dives in locations ranging from Southern California's kelp forests to the Caribbean's coral reefs. His wife and children often accompanied him on diving vacations. However, they had remained in San Diego for this particular expedition due to the specialized nature of great white shark diving. John had joined a group of 8 other divers aboard the research vessel Tiburon Explorer, operated by one of Mexico's most reputable shark diving companies. The 5-day expedition was scheduled to include multiple cage diving sessions, underwater photography workshops, and educational presentations by marine biologists studying great white shark behavior and migration patterns. John had invested considerable time and money in specialized underwater photography equipment, hoping to capture images documenting his encounters with these magnificent predators. On the morning of November 14th, conditions around Guadalupe Island were ideal for cage diving operations. The ocean was unusually calm, with visibility extending well beyond 30 meters and comfortable water temperatures for extended diving sessions. The Tiburon Explorer had anchored in a location that had consistently produced spectacular shark encounters during previous expeditions, and the crew's underwater cameras had already detected the presence of at least 6 individual great whites in the immediate vicinity. John participated in the morning's first cage diving session, which provided him with incredible opportunities to observe and photograph several massive great white sharks as they investigated the diving cage and the chum slick used to attract them to the area. The experience exceeded his expectations, with sharks measuring over 5 meters in length approaching within mere inches of the protective steel cage. John's underwater photographs captured these apex predators' raw power and grace in their natural environment. During the lunch break between diving sessions, John expressed his enthusiasm to fellow divers and crew members, describing the morning's encounters as the most thrilling experience of his diving career. He spoke frequently about his family's reaction to the photographs he was taking, mentioning that his youngest daughter had made him promise to bring back evidence of his adventures. John's excitement was infectious, and he volunteered to participate in the afternoon's final diving session despite having already completed 2 successful cage dives. The afternoon diving session began routinely, with John and 3 other divers entering the submersible cage that would be lowered to a depth of approximately 8 meters. The cage's design incorporated multiple viewing windows and specialized camera ports that allowed divers to capture photographs while maintaining complete protection from the sharks circling outside. John positioned himself at the cage's primary viewing window, where he had the best angles for photography while remaining safely enclosed within the steel structure. The tragedy occurred when a mechanical failure caused one of the cage's access panels to separate from its mounting points. The panel, which measured approximately 1 meter square and was designed to provide emergency access to the cage's interior, had been weakened by repeated stress from previous diving operations. John was positioned directly adjacent to this panel when it suddenly gave way, creating an opening large enough for a human body to pass through. The cage's sudden loss of structural integrity caused John to be pushed toward the opening by water pressure and the movements of other divers inside the enclosure. Before anyone could react to the mechanical failure, John found himself outside the protective cage, floating in open water approximately 15 meters from the boat's hull. The safety protocols required immediate emergency ascent procedures, but multiple great white sharks in the immediate area complicated any rescue attempts. A massive great white shark, estimated by witnesses to measure over 6 meters in length, attacked John within seconds of his unplanned exit from the protective cage. The shark struck from below with tremendous force, its powerful jaws clamping down on John's torso and left arm. The attack was swift and devastating, with the shark's crushing bite force causing massive internal injuries that were immediately fatal. Witnesses later described seeing the distinctive triangular dorsal fin of the great white as it carried John's body toward deeper water. The boat's crew immediately implemented emergency procedures, launching rescue boats and activating underwater communication systems to locate John's body. The search operation continued for over 6 hours, involving multiple ships and aircraft from Mexican maritime authorities. Divers equipped with protective gear searched the waters around Guadalupe Island, but the great white sharks in the area made underwater recovery operations extremely dangerous. John's body was eventually recovered the following morning by a Mexican Navy patrol boat approximately 2 kilometers from the site of the attack. The recovery operation required careful coordination with marine biologists who used acoustic deterrent devices to clear the immediate area of sharks before divers could safely approach John's remains. The Mexican authorities thoroughly investigated the incident, focusing on the mechanical failure that had led to the tragic accident. The investigation concluded that metal fatigue had caused the cage's access panel to fail, a condition that should have been detected during routine safety inspections. The diving company faced significant penalties and was required to implement comprehensive equipment upgrades before being allowed to resume operations. John's death led to industry-wide improvements in cage design and safety protocols that significantly reduced the risk of similar accidents. John's family established a memorial foundation that supported marine conservation efforts and diving safety research, ensuring that his passion for ocean exploration would continue to benefit future generations of divers and marine researchers.